Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Marketing 101 for Chiropractors. I'm Dr. D, and I'm in today with Chad Solis from AudioEye, and he's going to talk about compliance, website accessibility, things that I know you don't even think about on a day-to-day basis, but could get you into some deep trouble if you ever do get audited. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I think security is always important. And as a solo entrepreneur, we don't know all this stuff. Let's be honest. We went to school to be doctors, and then we end up owning this business, and then we have all these things that we're responsible from litigation, not hurting a patient, HIPAA compliance, documentation, EHRs, software, cloud-based servers, IT, security, computer logins. I mean, you learn a lot being an entrepreneur, but are we doing it right? And that's why you're here today, just to give us a quick reminder of what's going on and maybe even help out some people that may need some help or a review. We'll get into that. So, how'd you get into all this? That's always my number one question. How did you get into this stuff? It seems geeky, but how'd you do it?
Yeah, man, I have been doing I've started in digital marketing, been doing digital marketing for over 2 decades, across a ton of different industries from, high tech, B2B software to ed tech to consumer packaged goods and consumer electronics, all the way into retail and e-commerce. Even had a short stint in some healthcare, in a healthcare business. And it's evolved. Started, in graphic design, moved to, uh, traditional digital marketing, like, Google ads and Facebook ads and social media, and then into some operational pieces with automation and personalization, scale and growth. So it's been a wide variety over 24 years. A lot of fun. Worked with companies like, Vivint is a national brand. Adobe is a national brand you might recognize. Traeger, depending on the part of the country you're in, is a national brand. So, has worked with some big brands as well as some small startups and small, solo businesses as well.
Yeah, I like it. And I like people like you outside of our industry because it gets a little tight knit and we sometimes don't get the right perspective when you're all, it's like the same, your family members, you all have the same kind of perspective on stuff. And sometimes when you go outside and you realize, wow, there's other people on this earth, they got a completely different perspective, which catches other things, which is really important. So digital accessibility, when we say that, I mean, half the listeners right now probably don't even know what we're talking about. Just because someone can click on your website and open it up on a desktop or on a phone may not be good enough for some people that have disabilities. So let's go into that. What are some things that maybe we don't think about? We're like, hey, we got this beautiful website. It does everything we need it to do. It has the information. They can click this button and call us. What is digital accessibility?
Yeah, if you take a parallel to like the physical world, you can have a beautifully designed building, perfect architecture, good finishes. But if you don't have a wheelchair ramp into the building and you don't have the automatic door to let people in, and you don't have some of those mechanisms to access your building or the floors in your building, digital accessibility is the same as your website. You can have a nicely built website that looks good for, the an individual without disabilities, but could actually be a giant barrier for someone with disabilities to experience or action on your website. Especially there are a few industries that get a lot of attention with this. Healthcare is one of those industries. Financial services is another. E-commerce, as you could imagine, those are areas, those are verticals that everyone needs access to. They're not specialty to, say, B2B software necessarily, but in hospitality or healthcare, everyone wants access to that information. And so it could be as simple as, someone might have to use your website with a screen reader. And so if you don't have good anchor text or good use of your title tags or good alt text on your images, they're not going to be able to understand the context of what's happening on your website. It could also be someone that has some kind of motor skill disability and actually has to use either a puffer device or some other device to navigate. And so if you don't have the right navigation HTML on your website, or your forms set up the right way, you might not be able to actually have people contact you or complete if you have a kiosk in your office and that's how people sign in and that's how they tee up their appointment, they may not be able to do that. And so it's all those little details in aggregate can actually alienate about 25% of your potential client base.
See, great tips there. I mean, things we definitely don't think about. But hey, Chad, I have a website developer that does my website. I'm good to go. Not always
Yeah.
the case, right? I've learned that the hard way too. So yeah, so even though we have website developers or maybe a website hosting company, because most of us healthcare people don't do our own websites. It's very rare that I find people who do. Not all of them are compliant either. Sometimes you hire them. You're like, I hire them. I have a CPA. I've got a bookkeeper. IRS, I'm untouchable. But even with the right people, if they don't do the right things, you can still be susceptible to trouble, right?
Yeah, you can. If you're not compliant, you may want to add an attorney on
Right.
retainer there,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, it's to put in perspective that I do this for a living. I've done it for a long time. It wasn't until about 5 years ago that I actually had my first uh, real engagement with digital accessibility, and that was because the company I was with happened to be sued, and so we had to solve that problem. And that is, while it's unfortunate that it's not commonplace in our markets yet, it's becoming increasingly it is becoming increasingly something that we need to be aware of because lawsuits are on the rise now. There's two angles you can look at this as a business owner. There's kind of the defense mode where, I'm going to do this to protect myself from litigation. And then there's the offense mode of, I'm going to do this because I don't want to alienate 25% of my potential client base, which also ultimately means dollars and cents to your bottom line. Because when folks with disabilities find providers in any category, any vertical, that accommodate their needs through digital accessibility, they actually become extremely loyal to those providers. And so, and they have a $20 billion buying power behind them. And so, there are two angles. My angle is, do what's right, but also kind of the more revenue oriented approach, being a revenue marketer. But your worst case scenario is do it for protection as well, because ultimately the average accessibility lawsuit will range from $15,000 to $20,000 in settlement fees, and that's not trivial. And so, especially for small business owners, and so both those things are good angles to approach, assessing the opportunity cost of investing in that.
Yeah, those are great. I mean, great. And from a philanthropic perspective, you want to help these people. I mean, especially in healthcare. 25%, that's a big
Exactly.
number. I was expecting you to say like 1% or something like that, but you're right. 25% of people may fall into this category of having a disability, a visual acuity, whatever it may be. And your website is not compliant, but you could serve them by being compliant because guess who knows ADA compliance on a website more than anyone? People with disabilities. They're actually looking. Imagine when you're trying to look for a phone number, this is always gets me on a website. Drives me nuts that I can't click it or call it immediately from my phone. That was like a 6 year ago problem. And even up to today, there's websites that are just outdated and they just don't work. See how irritating that can be for you with all your physical abilities to hit that number and not be able to make that call. It's frustrating. But somebody with a disability to not be able to read the about section or the service section or how to book an appointment, you're going to lose out on them. They're out. They're going to bounce off that website and find the next healthcare provider that maybe does have it and will get their business for whatever it may be. These are great points there. What are
Yeah.
some things right away after this podcast that's going to be top of mind for about 6 seconds for most chiropractors? So
Yeah.
in those 6 seconds, how do we get through the world goldfish? How do we look on our website and make sure that there are a few things that are compliant?
Yeah. So, the first thing you can do for free, go and visit audioicom. We have a scanner that will run you through one time our automation technology. Now, something to keep in mind, automation of any provider, even our competitors. We have the highest ranking accuracy as far as what's called the WCAG rules against accessibility. But even at the highest level, only 50% of issues can be detected through automation. So we recommend a hybrid approach of automation with professional services to make sure you're fully compliant. That said, visit our website, plug in your website into our scanner. That'll give you some real quick tips on at least 50% of the issues. Some of those things are going to be real easy solves. You know, you look at what kind of impairments that would impact someone experiencing your website. Something like dyslexia can be solved with a better use of font. Someone with color blindness, better use of color on your website. Those are actually really easy changes. Someone that is blind, those are actually that the use of your header tags, your alt tags, things like that. Those are also very easy things to solve, and those would all come up in the accessibility scanner. So those are things you can do at low or no cost, and do that this afternoon, and have immediate value. Um, and for small businesses, you can actually, if what you see looks good to you, as far as like helping you be compliant here, we have a turnkey solution. You plug in a trial, and you do a 14-day trial on the website, and drop it into your website. And you're off and running on that 50% of compliance. So those are things you can do this afternoon for little to no cost.
Great. Those are great tips. Yeah, audioicom. That's fantastic. So do that, get checked, and make sure that the basics are covered. Then when you say the other 50%, the things that you may not want to think about, or you may need somebody in your service, an expert in that, to help stay on top of it. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a big thing with driving to compliance and accessibility is context. And unfortunately, scanning tools just can't pick up the context. So, for example, it can tell you that alt tags are missing, but it can't tell you what to put in those alt tags to make it effective, is one minor example. Uh, Context of link and navigation is another big one.
Mm,
Um, Things like that. So context is the biggest one, where it requires a human to go through the page, understand the context of what's trying to happen. So, how modals behave. A modal is like a pop-up without opening a new window.
mm.
um, how certain forms behave, things like that. It just requires context, and so that's where the human auditor can help with that.
Great. Yeah. Stuff that we have no clue what you just said. So that's why you need to have people like this on your team, at least reviewing it, or on retainer or monthly, whatever it is, however way you work this. Really important. Some scary stuff from 2024. I know pretty close to home, some chiropractors that have been audited and sued, and you hit it right on the head with the $20,000 thing. It was $20,000. And they do. There's these sleazy attorneys just combing the internet for healthcare, and just hitting from biggest corporations and just working their way down. Optometrists, chiropractors, dentists, they're just going. They got nothing better to do with their lives. So they're going through this. And if they truly are not compliant, they have a really strong case against you, because you're just not compliant. It's just somebody with blindness or dyslexia cannot read your site. Then they've got a strong case, and it's hard to defend that. You can resolve it and try and mitigate, but that's not what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to go right to the end and get some type of settlement from you. So it's scary stuff. Yes, it's a small percentage, but it was the highest ever in 2024. And I'm sure 2025 is only going to be bigger. It's just the way it absolutely is. So definitely look into this. Another thing, as I'm going through this with the lens of an entrepreneur and owning my own business, and I'm just shaking my head. I'm like, man, just another crappy thing to do on top of my list that's going to cost me money, and do this. And things have gotten tight since 2021. This inflation thing's ridiculous. It's the cost of everything's gone up. The cost per click on Google's gone up. Facebook leads cost more now than any other time. Just marketing goes up. I charge a premium in my office, but that seems like some days not enough. It's how much are you going to pay for an adjustment? $100. I mean, people are like, what's going on here? So I know it trickles down. And as an entrepreneur, the marketing budget is thin. We try and follow that 8 or 10% gross revenue thing. If you're running a healthy business, that should be a healthy budget for marketing, but boy, does it get eaten up very quick.
Yeah.
So when we need to add things like this, budget gets involved. But what are some tips now with this in 2025, as you've seen the marketing budgets get squeezed? What are good medium to small size businesses doing to help accommodate for that?
Yeah, and this will sound counterintuitive, but it is true. So, a lot of marketing, especially for small and medium-sized businesses, but even for large, is moving towards social media. And social media doesn't cost you anything, but it does cost you some time. And the trick with social media is moving, not trying to go wider and finding like more people. It's actually driving more value within the people are already your target audience. So, I'll use chiropractics as an example. On my own social stream, I actually will occasionally see chiropractors on that stream, and they're providing health tips, and they're tips that you generally want someone to come into your office for. So that's where the counterintuitive part feels, is like I'm giving away my intellectual property. But what happens is that kind of content where you're adding value and not asking for anything in return, that actually creates loyalty. And then when they have a real problem that they need to solve, then the first person they think of is going to be where they got that knowledge, that understanding, that value. And again, for chiropractics, maybe it's something more along the lines of like, here's stretching you can do, and here's other health habits. Here's diet things that help strengthen bones, or are healthy for joints and healthy for muscle tissue and things like that. All those kinds of tips will lead them still, when they have a problem, back to you, because you were someone that provided them information. So those are things that cost you time, but they don't cost you money. And so you invest in providing good quality content. Doesn't have to be long stuff, 15 to 30 seconds in reels on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Even written content still goes a long way. I would take time even in channels you wouldn't think about going to, like LinkedIn is now becoming a channel where I'll actually see quite a bit of healthcare stuff pop up in my feed in LinkedIn, where that's traditionally not where healthcare professionals have been. So it's really leaning into social media. You can make a pretty big dent, but commit to content, and commit to it multiple times a week. And over time, that will get built out and shared, and your audience will build, and that will ultimately create some loyalty and even some digital revenue if you really get into it in a heavy way.
Yeah, YouTube could turn into a very useful channel if you build it. I mean, with tips and value that's giving it away, showing people how to live healthier. Yeah, we talked about all this, and it's so nice for you outside of our industry to repeat the same things. It's about being productive with your time rather than just constantly being active and doing things of lower value. So you're right. Even though you're going to trade money for time, make sure your time's worth it. Make sure your time is productive. That's what we try and teach with our coaching as well. It's like, yes, you got to make this time for it, but make it highly productive. When you put aside an hour of content creation every week to hammer out the videos that you're going to post, make it valuable, make it this stuff, and you can reuse it. You can blast across all the channels. So yeah, you just pretty much summed up a lot of the recent podcasts that we've been on talking about content creation. So you're right, that's free. So that's great. And the ADI compliance thing. What else do you see? Where do you see everything moving forward now with, so many changes happening with not just websites, but now search compatibility. ChatGPT is now the number one search engine out there for all questions. It just passed Google about 6 months ago. So it's the number one search engine. People are now going to that to ask the same questions that they used to ask on Google, except they just don't get that hyper local search results like Google provides to you when you're searching for a business, for example. ChatGPT is not there yet, but people are asking all the health questions there. They're asking all the ranking for now. Now we're like, well, I've been doing all this stuff for 25 years on Google. How are we going to rank for these guys? And voice capability. Now, hey, Alexa, find a close chiropractor. I can't get up off the floor. That's what people are saying. And Alexa's got to shoot this information back. I don't know if that's your forte, but where do you see this going? Where should our focus be so we can be more productive rather than just randomly active?
Yeah, the great questions. The nice thing is the same practices that help SEO for search for Google are going to be very similar practices for AI. For all, if you're on ChatGPT or Cloud or whoever, Gemini, uh, the same practices for SEO will generally help with AI. That said, there are some other things in addition to that which will help even accelerate that, which is going to be a little bit harder for small businesses, but still possible. Um, so chat AI will use third-party content and weight it a certain way. So, for example, if getting your articles posted, so for us, we're a medium-sized business, probably large by most of your audience standard, but uh, we try to get on websites like Forbes or Fortune or even smaller ones like Marketing Professional, Marketing Profs, or things like that, where uh, we get our articles posted there and then they link back to our website, but they also are talking about us. So the way that a small business could do this is posting articles on LinkedIn. That doesn't cost you anything. Posting articles on Medium, uh, again, YouTube, things like that. The more content, the short version of this is the more content you put in the public domain that does not require authentication to get into, but on major publications like Medium, like LinkedIn, like Forbes, or whatever the healthcare or chiropractic version of those uh, publishers are. That the AI engines or the AI engine optimization will pick those things up and weight them a little heavier than your traditional SEO stuff. And so that's where that becomes really helpful. But those are very possible for small businesses to do. Again, it's just taking the time to do the regular content and reach out and make contact with some of those publications so that you can become an expert writer for them. I know a lot of folks that, don't come from a big company, become a writer in Forbes because of persistence, and then they're an expert on a topic. And that, that can happen for someone with a little bit of diligence.
Yeah, consistency. You mean?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the key for all this. Everything is about being consistent. That's great. Great tips, man. I mean, this is fantastic. AI is a frontier. I could probably just do the rest of this year every week a podcast about AI and where it's going, and everyone's got their ideas. But we can start to see the trends now of how it's building up to be. It's really reading all the information. It's almost like the internet got to like this cul-de-sac of like, okay, there's an infinite amount of information here. 90% of it is good. 10% of it's lies. And it's at this end now where now AI is needed to go through and decipher, fact and fiction. And we're in that infancy stage of AI where it's like just regurgitating information from the internet, but it's only picking qualified stuff. So it's automatically screening for qualified. And for small businesses like us, our articles, our blogs are not going to show up on and compete with the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic and John Hopkins and all this stuff. We're not going to compete when they say something about blood pressure and we're like, well, chiropractic can help lower blood pressure. We're never going to compete. So when somebody says, what can I do for blood pressure on ChatGPT? Unless you're feeding it this information, where I'm going with this rambling is that because AI is in its infancy, we need to feed the information to the AI. So a little habit I've been getting into is at the end of most days, not every day, I'll give a little summary of how my day went and some miracles that happened today in the office and some good stuff from symptom base from the patients. And I'm hoping that some way, somehow, in as AI builds, that it gets to know that, hey, Enrico's a local chiropractor in this area, and maybe start to build it in that way, because there's only so much information on our website and you can only put so much information on there. So these are the little tactics that I'm trying. I don't know if they're valid yet. We'll see how that goes. But you got to feed the machine. If it doesn't know who you're at, up until not too long ago, ChatGPT's last update was like November 2024. So if you never said anything to it before November 2024, it doesn't know you right now. I think there was just a recent one. There was another one in March, so it was updated. But until that update happens and you haven't given it any information, it really doesn't know what's going on. So, and that's going to open up a whole can of worms with you with compliance with AI. I'm sure we could do this again next year and see where you're at with that and how that's playing a game and being compliant with AI too. That's gonna We need you. We need people like you. Tech is just growing like crazy, and somebody's got to keep an eye on this stuff because it's always growing and causing. With growth comes other problems, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But
So cool. So your homework for today: audioicom. Go find the scanner, put in your URL, see what's going on there, and then if you have bigger questions, please just send an email to Chad and see what he can do for you or how he can hook you up or whatever his tools are to help you guys out. That's probably the best next step. Thanks for being on the show. Did we miss anything? Do you want to add anything there?
no, I think you covered it thoroughly. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. That's great. Thanks for being on the show. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of
Appreciate
course.
it.
Yeah.